Hey, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Sarah Sperber and I am a real estate agent in the Northern Nevada housing market. Every week I show up here and I give you guys valuable insights about the market and of course all things to do with the buying and selling process and of course market data. So stay tuned. On today's episode, I'm going to be talking specifically to those of you who are thinking about relocating to our area from Texas. Now, preface this whole thing with I recently went to the EDON luncheon, which is the Economic Development Authority of Western Nevada. They had this super interesting slide in the presentation that day that talked about where everybody is relocating here from. The number one state, clearly California. I think California is experiencing a mass exodus. I think most states are seeing an influx of California natives. We're no different and we're right next door, so we're getting a lot of that. Our number two state was Florida. And today I'm going to be talking about our number 3 state, which is Texas. Yeehaw! If you guys are watching and you're thinking about moving here from Texas, this one is for you, so stay tuned. All right, I'm going to be talking about a few different topics here, but the first one, of course, is going to be the weather. Stay tuned to the end though, because I am going to get into the cost of living, and I know that's secretly why you're all here, so make sure you stay till the end. But let's talk first about the weather. Now, obviously, Texas is a huge state, and within that, there are so many different microclimates. You've got some desert, you've got some more tropical areas if you get down towards the Gulf area. But that said, you know, in Reno and Sparks specifically, in our Northern Nevada kind of market here, we are in the high desert. So we have the Sierra Nevada mountain range as our backdrop, so to speak. But that said, we are still in the desert. So it gets to be quite hot and quite cold here. I always like to say that Mother Nature in Reno is very bipolar. Especially in the summer, we see extremely hot daytime followed by a really cold nighttime. It's just kind of how it is. I always say if you're moving here, you're gonna wanna bring layers. I always keep many things in my car, including a heavy jacket and a bathing suit, because you never know. You could need both in the same day, depending on where you're moving from in Texas. That could also be true, but I think in general, with Texas being further south and closer to the coast, you're probably getting a lot more heat. Let's also talk about geography while we are on the topic. As I mentioned, Reno, Sparks, Carson, we're kind of in that high desert, valley landscape. Texas is a massive state. There's so much diversity when it comes to the geography. You've got coastal beachfront, you've got forests, you've got deserts, and of course you've got plains. So it really depends on where you're moving from, but I'd say overall, Texas is going to be a much more diverse landscape depending on what part of the state you're moving from. All right, I'm going to talk about a topic that everybody loves to bicker about. I'm gonna try to remain neutral here, but we are gonna touch on politics. It depends on where within the state that you are. Overall, I'd say Nevada is pretty purple or pretty center leaning, and of course if you're in the more densely populated areas, Reno, Vegas, it tends to be a bit more center, whereas if you're in the outskirts, it's gonna be a little bit further right leaning, a little bit more conservative. I think overall Texas may be similar in that way, but I think overall Texas is a lot more conservative leaning. It's a red state, though I think in certain pockets, i.e. Austin, might be a little bit more liberal. So it just really depends on where you're coming from and which part of the state you're moving to. Let's talk about culture and lifestyle for a second. Reno, although it's rapidly developing and becoming a greater metropolitan area, it's still relatively small, especially compared to some of the bigger cities in Texas, like Dallas or Houston. Reno's not going to quite stack up as far as population or density. It's still considered smaller than those places. But as far as culture and nightlife and entertainment, I mean, we're thriving. We have so many restaurants, so many choices, so many entertainment venues. I mean, it's really developing in a great way here. And I mean, whether or not you like Burning Man or you go to Burning Man or you care about Burning Man, because we are the last major city that's kind of closest to that cultural experience, we have a lot of spin-off things in our city that have to do with it. So a lot of the culture here is influenced by artists. It's influenced by people from all over the world who kind of like stop here along the way, have connections here as far as making their way to that, building big art. So I think in that regard, it's really a cool place to live, regardless of whether or not you care about Burning Man. As far as employment opportunities go, I would say the major industries between the two states are actually quite similar. Both have emerging tech industry, healthcare, manufacturing. It's actually really similar. But what I will point out to you guys is that because we are neighbors with California and because we have so many tax advantages for both income but also for business climate, this is a really popular destination for big business. And so we might be slightly, not by a ton, but we might be kind of beating Texas in that realm. And as far as employment opportunity goes per capita, I actually think that based on the statistics that I'm seeing, Reno has more opportunities for employment. If you've been with me this far, we are going to dive into the cost of living conversation. Overall, the cost of living in Reno is going to be much more than the cost of living in Texas. By comparison, the cost of living, when we take into account groceries, gas, like everything, overall, it's gonna be a lot cheaper and your dollar is gonna go a lot further in Texas. Now, when we talk about housing, we do have to look at specific neighborhoods because certain parts of major cities in Texas are actually quite expensive now. I think there's this sort of perception or misconception that Texas is like so cheap, but I think it just depends on which specific neighborhoods, which specific cities. I know that places like Corpus Christi that are right on the water are becoming very popular, and you're right on the Gulf, so it has this whole tropical vibe. Places like that are still kind of developing though. When you look at dollar for dollar, it's still a lot cheaper to live there than it is here. But overall, I still think it's gonna be a lot more expensive to live in Reno or Sparks than it is in most places in Texas. So keep that in mind. All right, let's talk about taxes really quick. I did kind of touch on this, but side by side, neither state have income taxes, and that's great news for anyone earning an income in either state. But here's the kicker, here's the thing. Property taxes in Texas are actually much higher than they are in Nevada. So you're gonna wanna keep that in mind. All right, you guys, this was a lot, but what questions do you have? Leave them in the comments. What else do you want to know about life in Reno? I'm your girl. If you have specific questions about our area or about buying and selling real estate here, please don't be a stranger. You can book a free call with me. There's a link to do that in the description box below. It's no obligation, just a chance for us to connect and see if we might be a good fit to work together, or at the very least get your questions answered, so don't be shy. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit that like and that subscribe button. I put out new videos every single week about the Reno Sparks housing market, the Northern Nevada lifestyle, and all things to do with buying and selling real estate. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.